welcome.
Hello, good morning.
You've been educating our lower school a little bit on water polo, talking a little bit about how you use your hands the way you would use your feet in soccer, and you use your feet in water polo the way you might use your hands in soccer to help you sort of your momentum and staying above the water line. And already one of our classrooms, C3, I'm sure, does anyone know which grade that is? Some people say water polo is the hardest sport in the world.
Oh, yes,
agree?
we already know.
So we spent a few minutes just sort of introducing. We talked a little bit about I don't know if I think you had seen that we had shared a book and I let the students know you are chapter 1, first 9 pages of that book. And yeah, I think we'll go ahead and let you sort of just introduce yourself in the way that feels good to you.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for this invitation. You know, especially during Diversity Week, at the end of Women's Month, these are all things that resonate loudly with me as part of my identity. And I always appreciate the opportunity to talk to the youth, because I think representation matters. And I think hearing about different lived experiences is so important. And it's a way to get us all listening and connecting with each other. So I'm Brenda Villa. I'm a 4-time Olympic medalist in the sport of water polo. I now work at Castilleja, but that's later in my story. I grew up in the city of Commerce, which is in and near East Los Angeles. My community is predominantly Latinx. I would say my community had under-resourced schools. It is a lower income area, but it's not an under-resourced community because the city I grew up in provided access and opportunity to sports for free. So for me, that was a big game changer because I was able to get introduced to aquatics, which is a sport that isn't normally played in the Latinx community or marginalized communities because access is so hard. Usually you have to pay a lot of fees to even have access to a pool. So I was, very lucky from a young age to have access to a swimming pool. And that, I would honestly say, changed the trajectory of my life. So I played on a co-ed team while I was really young. My team happened to be really good. So it allowed me to get this confidence. And I realize now that I'm so grateful that it was predominantly Latinx, because water polo it's a predominantly, I would say, affluent white sport that's played. And, being on a predominantly Latinx team and we were good, just gave me the confidence that I didn't have to code switch or worry about anything, right? I was in community, I was in family, we were thriving, we were playing, we were having fun. And when we went outside of our city, that's when we realized, how the outer world operated, and there just weren't a lot of teams that looked like us. So we took pride in that. And I think from a really young age, I was able to see myself through that identity, right, of, a Mexican, American, Latinx athlete navigating the world of water polo. So I played water polo, and then going into high school, water polo was gaining popularity in our community for the boys, right? So then if I wanted to play water polo in high school, I needed to try out for the boys team. And of course, for me, that didn't seem impossible because I grew up playing co-ed. My older brother was already on the team. My best friends were already on the team. So for me, it was a matter of being seen as an athlete, not a girl, right? It was like, she can play. So yes, we want her on the team. So I tried out, made that team, and there was a lot of support in my community, but not always outside of my community. So here I have a lot of identities that I'm realizing, right? Like my gender, my ethnicity, and not until way later in my life did I realize that I couldn't separate any of those identities. But as I was growing up, I felt that I needed to in order to thrive in the different spaces that I was in. So then I was in high school playing on an all boys team. We won 2 CIF titles. I believe I was the first girl to start on a team that won a CIF title on a boys team. And for me, I just always had fun playing water polo. So that's why I continued to play. And for my parents, education was always important and a key. So for them, as long as your homework was done, I was able to play all these sports and spend all this time investing in sports. And then by my senior year in high school, I was recruited to play at Stanford, and I committed to go there. And I didn't realize till after graduation that I would be the first student from my high school to attend Stanford University, the first student to get a full athletic scholarship to go to Stanford. So these are a lot of firsts that happened in my life that I had to navigate on my own, ask questions, talk to my support system about my dreams, because no one else had done it before. So it was sometimes nerve-wracking, but I think always having the support of my parents and my community always helped lead me. And then as I was getting ready to compete in college, women's water polo was put into the Olympic program. So could you imagine, the men have been playing at the Olympic level since 1900. And now in 2000, 100 years later, they finally say, okay, we think the women can do this also. So I happened to be born at the right time to, take advantage of Title IX, which increased and access to sports in a lot of areas. Like a lot of institutions had to make sure that there was equal representation of women and men playing in sports. So I was born at the right time to take advantage of that in college. And then now that it was an Olympic sport, I was able to be I earned the right to be a part of the first USA Women's Olympic water polo team. We made it to the final game. So I was a part of the first ever final. We didn't win that game, but in that moment, that's when my dream of becoming an Olympic champion was born. And then that took me another 8 years or so to achieve. So then I was able to be a part of the first gold medal that Team USA won in 2012. So in that journey, I was able to be more comfortable in my own skin. There was a lot of interviews once you get to that level, and a lot of it came back to me talking about my heritage, my family, being bilingual. And I never asked to be a role model in this, right? But it happened because I was comfortable in speaking about my family and what supported me in my journey. And now that I've been retired now for 9 years, but I've never forgotten the access and opportunity that my city gave me at a young age. So then now in the DEI world, the equity world that I'm in, it has always been important for me to make sure that everyone has access to aquatics. And that's how I found my way to Castilleja as the water polo coach, and then into this role of Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And that's how I met Mr. LaValle here. We were both, Peninsula Bridge site directors. So this access piece is so important in aquatics and education. So I want to be able to pay it forward. I think about my college days, and I think about there now bringing in another identity, right? Like being an athlete on campus and what that meant, but also being like a first gen student who had no clue that, you went to office hours, you asked questions, tutoring everyone, was some part of something. So, even in conversations home, right? All my conversations home were in Spanish. So it was always interesting to be around teammates. And when was I speaking Spanish on the phone with my parents? When did I switch to English? And my parents understand English, but our language is Spanish. So I would catch myself, in moments making those decisions, like, do I really bring in my teammates and let them see that, you know, I only have conversations with my parents in Spanish. So I think it took me a few years to get comfortable enough to be like, this is me, this is my family, and we communicate in Spanish. So you all have to be okay with that if you want to get to know the Villas a little more. And I think it was so great to see the way people found ways to communicate, you know, with my parents. So I think for me, language has always been one, going in and out of it, and where I did that. Now I'm very conscious of, and now I slip in Spanish words because there are just some Spanish words that you can't translate. It loses the meaning. So I'm trying not to do that now so that I could be my full authentic self. Yes, I have started or co-founded a nonprofit. One was specifically focusing in the Bay Area and creating access and opportunities for marginalized youth to get into aquatics and removing the barrier of cost, right? So come learn to swim. Water safety is a survival skill that we all should have. And it really comes down to, if you have access and if you have resources, that you become water safe. So I want to help alleviate that. So I created this foundation where you could learn to swim at the pool that I was working at in East Menlo Park. And then now we've pivoted to the Brenda Villa Foundation, and now it's not linked to one community per se. We want to be able to partner with organizations across the US and grant resources, grant institutional knowledge, whatever we can to help you start programs in communities where you don't see water safety for all.
Water polo.
Oh, yes. I started when I was 8 years old. I started swimming on the swim team at age 6, and it was a natural progression at my club to do both. So 2 years later, my mom allowed me to play with the boys. She was very hesitant, but I'm grateful that she said yes.
Ooh, tell us more about this. She allowed you to play with the boys.
So I say that because my mom never played sports, right? The oldest of 10 children, helped raise some of her siblings. And for her and my culture, it seemed in that time from Mexico, you know, women helped raise kids, women stayed at home. It wasn't like you were out there playing sports and playing co-ed sports. So here is her only daughter in a swimsuit, right, playing a contact sport with boys. So I think it took her a little bit to be okay with that. And I think she then really enjoyed that at 10 and under, I was just as tall as the boys and better than the boys. So I think that secretly that's why she allowed me to continue. But I'm grateful that she was open-minded to a new culture, a new, I guess, society that she was in now. I mean, it was normal to me, right? I grew up playing with boys. So we had the same talent, we passed the same way. So if there wasn't a girls team, to me, it was always like, why wouldn't they let me play on the boys team? So it wasn't the boys team, it was a team, right? And I will say that I'm very fortunate that my teammates saw me as an athlete. They're like, we want to win, you can play, it doesn't matter to us. It was when we went to other pools, other high schools, where I heard comments like, why are you playing a man's sport? Or I would get fouled extra hard. And there were a few times, to be quite honest, that there were almost fights in the pool because my teammates saw that we were getting, I guess, picked on, and they're like, are you serious? Like, this is not okay. So it was very interesting. And then you throw in the dynamic of race and ethnicity. So here we are playing in Orange County in these very affluent neighborhoods, and you have this team of Latinx kids that are good and are scrappy and are winning, and people were not okay with that. There were times where our parents were heckled in the stands, and so I think about all that now, and I think it was a chip on my shoulder that just motivated me. And now I think about how no one should have to be experiencing that, right? Like just enjoy the joy and go out there and train to be the best that you can. But I guess it helped me, so I guess I'm a little grateful for that. You know, I
Yeah.
usually when I speak, I do bring my medals here. I was gonna put, let me see if I can put this background picture. I don't know if you all can see it down at the bottom. Those are my 4 Olympic medals. And up to the top left is like my 10 and under team. Like we were co-ed and it was fine. And look, I'm bigger than or taller than some of the boys, but we had fun, we played, we were a family, and it just, the gender roles there didn't matter. I play masters. So I mean, I played for so long, and when it's because I really enjoyed it. I mean, the training and the grind, after a while your body just isn't happy, right? But I love it and I still play masters, and it's the only way that I really truly enjoy getting the exercise and cardio that I need. So I love just swimming. I love the pool. To me, it's a relaxing, like my self-care safe place.
Great, thanks. Well, I noticed that it's 9:20, so I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to meet with us. It was truly inspirational for me, and hopefully, well, here's a cool bit. In one of the classes, somebody said, "I speak Spanish too, and it makes me feel good that you do too."
Yes.
So thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you for the invitation. Have a great day.
Muchas gracias.
De nada.
Nos vemos. Thank you, Hillbrook Lower School, for joining us.